Food for thought. Well, and like owner-occupied interest rates being in the sixes, maybe sevens, people will adjust, and they would be fine if it stays level. So as long as we don't have more inflation, where the Fed then has to start raising rates and pushing mortgage rates up even higher, I mean, as long as they stay relatively level, long term, people will adjust and they'll be fine. You know, where we ended up in trouble, where we ended up with, mortgage lock-in, right? Like, for example, at my home, I have like a 2% interest rate. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're not moving unless we have to. My wife wants a pool, so guess what? We're house shopping. Oh no. But, if it was,
it'll be a rental, right? Keep that one as a rental.
But I mean, I'll never be able to borrow money at 2% ever again. That's never happening. And there's a lot of people like that would like to move and would have moved or bought a new house or refinanced, but they're never going to do that because they're in the 2s or 3s. I mean, rates just went up so far, so fast, and that's what happened with supply. Is nobody wants to move, unless my job moves me to a different city, right? Then
people that had to move.
Yep.
And I've been confused about that.
Yeah, well, that's why the average age of a loan has increased. It used to be like 6 to 7. Now it's more like 7 to 8 years, because as people are locked into these 2% rates, they want to keep that low, right?
Is that on homeowners or investment properties? What's that average? Is it all the way across the board?
Yeah, that's average across the board for a 30-year fixed rate loan.
Okay.
The average lifespan of a 30-year fixed rate loan right now is somewhere between 7 and 8 years.
Okay.
I do think that prices come down eventually. The problem is I've been wrong about when they're coming down. I've been really wrong about it. But they're saying, they're like, well, the market's it's not a buyer's market. They're like, the market is reaching an intersection. I said, okay, but inventory is increasing 10% a month. So if it's a balanced market right now, it'll be a buyer's market next month.
Yeah. So prices have started to come down. Like they have. Like I've been seeing, we're house shopping. I've been seeing lots of price reductions. Houses sitting on the market 45, 60, 90 days. And like one in my neighborhood, unfortunately, they just accepted an offer from a wholesaler because they weren't getting any offers. And like, I wish I had known that. I'd have made them.
That's the reason it's so hard to be a house flipper right now. It's because the prices are there's still a lot of investor money on the sidelines from wholesalers or from investors, but then the homeowners, they aren't paying it anymore.
Well, what surprised me
They can't afford it.
is I've had flips at 150, 200, 300, and $1 million. And all of these that historically foundation investment knowledge has told you, I'm going to be able to sell these pretty consistent because of median income. These ones didn't sell. And my $1 million home went for 3% above asking with multiple cash offers.
They still have money.
Yeah, that's true.
Because the money keeps trickling up.
Yeah, what a joke.
So they have money.
All right, guys, let's get in the 5% mark. If you're not there, please get there soon. I think that's what I've just gathered from all this.
Buy a lot of houses really fast. I'll finance all of them.
There you go.
What's the advice, right? I mean, it's a lot of kind of economy doom and gloom.
I want you to tell me, Mike.
That's
tell me.
What's the advice? Is just buy assets and hold things and hope they cash flow. What's the strategy?
That's mine.
Basically, like you make no money by just saying, "Oh, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. I'm just not buying anything." You make no money by staying on the sidelines, right? Yeah. So I don't advocate just sit on your hands and do nothing. I mean, the only times I lost money in real estate is when I broke my rules, right? So evaluate the deals, run your numbers, do the deals that make sense, and don't cheat on your rules. Because when you cheat on your rules, that's when you get in trouble.
Or your wife.
Don't cheat on your wife.
That'll cost you more than
That'll cost you way more.
Well, look, if you zoom out to 20 years, the biggest way to not lose money is to not get divorced.
Right there. Guys, your best investment is marriage counseling. I'm just telling you. He's not lying. He is not wrong there.
Yeah. Because that costs what? Half plus attorneys?
Half plus attorneys.
Women don't get half anymore. They got clever. They're saying, I want all my alimony up front out of the assets. They're taking like 65%. That shit's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, okay, I'll level with you, Mike. I'll level with you. It's only really doom and gloom if you're comparing it to 2020 through 2022, which wasn't a healthy market. Like, everybody wants the glory days, but that was terrible. Even if Trump had won another 4 years, that couldn't go on. Like, if things had continued at that trajectory, I couldn't afford a home. Okay?
Yeah.
It was problematic. People are panicking if their home doesn't sell in 90 days. Okay? That's actually, it used to be that if your home sold in 90 days, you were moving really quick. You did something right as a house flipper. Your houses were tasteful and modded. I mean, are we seeing houses sit for 6 months now? We're starting to get closer to that across the board.
I think the average is 45 now,
Yeah.
days on market. Just still not bad.
There are price points that are sitting longer than that for sure, but where are you making money right now? Loans, okay, hard money lenders. I'm convinced they're making more money than anybody right now.
Wholesaling.
Yeah,
Wholesalers are making good money still.
which surprises the hell out of me, honestly.
There's so many people that still want to get into the market.
Yep.
There's so many people. Everybody wants to own real estate.
Mhm.
So
I've
still
kind
sexy.
of noticed that,
Mhm.
that's still a gimmick this year, is that if I put my house on the market, it's not valuable. But if I tell people I've got an off-market opportunity, people are still like, "Ah." And it's worse than the shit they get on the MLS, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, but wholesalers have been doing this the last 3 years. I mean, my God, I can't tell. But I guess they're back up, so congratulations. Yeah, so I guess the wholesalers are kind of making money. Guns, I've done really well on guns this year.
Yeah.
I know you didn't come here to hear about guns, but I've made like 15% on my guns year over year. That's not a joke. You can't laugh at that. I just bought a whole bunch of new guns. Food, my highest ROI has been my food storage. Every year I'm eating off the front of my food storage and I'm buying new food and putting it on the back, and I'm looking at what I bought the crap on the front for and what I bought the crap on the back for, and I'm like 30% up. I'm like a 30% ROI on food. Is that dumb? Yeah, it's kind of dumb, but it is. I mean, you can still buy things that cash flow, okay? But you have to be willing to get dirty now. And even now, the dirt comes with severe risk. Like, it used to be that if you bought a burn property or a squatter property or something, yeah, it was going to be a pain in the butt, but you knew for sure you were going to make money. But now you can make money doing that. Maybe it's one of the only ways you can still make money. But you really have to go over there and say, "Hey, Jose, how's my painting going?" And kind of grab his nuts and squeeze him and say, "I didn't ask you for a third coat of paint, Jose." Because I'm noticing if I run 5% or 10% over my budget now, that is now my profit margin.
Yep.
Profit margins aren't 30% anymore. So I'm negotiating with my contractors and they're like, "Please, sir, that's my profit margin. That's how I feed my family." I said, "No, that's my profit margin. You know, it was yours. It's mine now. Sorry." But that's the world we live in now. I don't know what to tell you other than we all got comfortable and fat and drove our Teslas and Ford Raptors and vacationed to Mexico 4 times a year. And if you want to make money now, you're going to have to slit throats, because if you don't, I'm going to slit yours first. I mean, I know that's terrible, but you know, you never know how valuable integrity is until people start going hungry. And then you find out it's actually really expensive. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, ask yourselves this anecdotally. Is contractor theft up this year?
Oh, yeah.
Have you guys had contractors that ran over budget and then just had some sort of excuse for it? Like more than usual?
Yes.
"Oh, well, I thought you said this." No, it's not by accident. People are hurting.
Well,
So if you don't get ready to be ruthless and fight for your dollar, right now, I will fight for every dollar before I send it to its death.
Well, I feel like too now, for at least us, before when the contractor went a little bit over, it wasn't a big deal because we knew we were going to make so much money. So now it's, I don't know if we're seeing more contractor theft this year than we did last year, or if we just notice it a lot more. Like before, we were rolling so much money and rolling so fast, and it didn't matter what we threw on the market, we were getting highest and best.
People are hurting right
Mhm.
now. There's probably more because, I mean, your typical contractor and his subs, they're paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
I mean, there are tenants, as Dakota was mentioning earlier. They're
Mhm.
struggling, right? I've had so many more like bounced payments this over the last 12 months than I've ever had before. I mean, there's the one tenant that he's always bounced his payment every single week. He's on weekly rent. He's my weekly rent guy that He bounces his payment every single
not
week.
a
He
good
bounces, but he always pays. He just
And the late fee.
and a late fee
And a late fee.
and an NSF fee. Right? I mean, he's paying an extra 30% in rent. because
Sex
he just-
offenders welcome.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I mean, he's not the only one anymore. Is my point.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it used to just be him. But I wasn't worried about him because he always pays. Well, now he's not just a week behind. Now he's 3 weeks behind, and I've got other tenants now that also just bounce their monthly rent check because they're all on auto pay, and then their auto pay didn't go through.
We have commercial tenants bouncing checks now.
Ooh.
So, and that's pretty
That's
rare.
not a good
But
sign.
yeah, it's been getting worse and
No,
worse.
guys, but employment's 2%. It's fine.
So the way the employment figures are skewed. So part of how they run that database, like new jobs and whatnot, is based on these large employers reporting their figures to the BLS, right? Well, when they post a job opening now with all the remote work opportunities, they don't just post the job in the city they're in. They're posting it in like 8 different cities. So that one job gets posted 8 times.
Interesting.
So that's where the new job creation figures get really skewed, and how going all the way back to June, they had to reduce the numbers for like 100,000 jobs per month.
And they count
realized they
federal
were-
jobs too.
Yeah,
They be posting their own
yeah.
jobs.
Yeah, so they were having to. They realized, oh wait, we counted this one job 8 times. We have to reduce that, and all of a sudden there's 100,000 less jobs. Right. So I mean, yeah, unemployment is higher than what they're reporting because they're also not counting the discouraged and the discouraged worker that just gave up.
Yeah.
If you're not actively applying for work, you don't count. You gave up. So you're no longer a part of the workforce.
I'd be interested to see how many people were working 2, 3, 4 years ago and now are in government assistance today. That'd be really interesting to see how many people was just like, enough's enough. I quit. I give up. It's,
Yeah, and
My-
they retire.
they retire. Yeah. And it really sucks because, I'm looking at some of my tenants that are in some of my apartments, and they're not doing any better than a lot of Dakota's Section 8 people, right? When I look at
They're
it,
doing much worse.
they're doing much worse.
Yeah.
They just
Most of my self-paid tenants have more than one job right now. My Section 8 tenants are living the life and screaming at me.
Well, and in Oklahoma, we're actually a lot are overall. There's some of these states the states are paying the people not to work,
That's absurd.
and they're paying them way more than you can make working.
Are they still doing that?
For sure.
Yeah.
What states are those?
Sweet,
It's
moving!
Northeast. I think it's New Jersey.
New Jersey?
There's one of the states that's paying almost $50,000 a year not to work. Still,
So
this was as of last month.
during COVID. I mean, you would get your normal like unemployment or Social Security, right? And then on
Plus
top of
600.
that, they would give you an extra amount of money from the state.
There's 2 or 3
Yeah.
states still doing it.
Yeah, some of those. Yeah, like I said, they.
I just read the article the other day, and I
they
couldn't
just
believe
never-
it was still going
They
on.
just never discontinued the practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, my dad had a part-time job working for somebody. My dad's retired, but he had a part-time job working for somebody. COVID, he got laid off, and so he got the unemployment plus that, and so he was actually making more money.
Yes.
Then when he was working, yeah. Why would you want to go back to work then?
What's getting me is how many people was applying for apartments and things like that on their new income.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were like, oh yeah, we've been
Federal
making
employee.
this. Yeah, new federal employee. They're
I'm on
like,
the
oh yeah,
payroll.
we were making $30,000 a year, but now we're making 45. So they're trying to move up in their apartments, and we're like, what happens when this ends? And they're like, oh yeah, we're a government employee or whatever now.
So let's talk about unemployment since I'm already canceled today. Here's a tip. Start making friends with your white contractors. Okay? Because we talk about nobody wanting to work, and we've got a president saying that he wants to do mass deportations. Okay? Were any of you paying attention when Oklahoma unofficially started enforcing a mass deportation plan earlier this year but never announced it? They had an unofficial mandate to pull over anybody who looks Hispanic. Okay?
Okay.
They were doing it in solidarity with Texas. All right? Anybody notice all of a sudden projects got really backed up like February through July? It's because every Mexican got in their car and went to Kansas City. Okay? That's a very small glimpse of what may happen if we start doing real mass deportations. Now, I have thoughts on how much Trump can really do, how much he wants to do. what he could do, what that would do to the housing market. You know, when he started saying that, I started going through my rent rolls and asking my employees if they remember how many of these people didn't have social security cards, when we moved them in.
So post-election, Trump was interviewed and asked about that. His comments was, the ones that have been here a long time, I'm not worried about them. That's not who I'm going after. So hopefully he sticks to the new language as opposed to his rhetoric when he was running for office.
Well, I don't know if it's a federal issue. It is a federal issue, but I think the states are going to use this, are going to feel pretty emboldened. I mean, you've got some states that I don't know jokingly or not, but are talking about offering state level bounties on turning people in that are here illegally.
I hope not.
Can't imagine.
But that's going to be something. I mean, here's the thing. Even if it doesn't stop the people that are already here, a huge portion of the people who do the work seasonally here. They come here, they're here for 6 months, they go back to their country, they bring their family over for a little bit, they go back. I think that labor on our properties is going to start becoming harder to come by. To what extent, I can't say. Obviously, we love the guys that show up at 5 a.m. and put our roof on by 9 a.m. and only ask for a case of Modelo's and, $2,000. But I almost promise you those guys are probably not U.S. citizens, right? Because I know when they're a U.S. citizen because they want $30,000 and they show up 4 hours late. So, it might be good to start branching out and just making other contacts would be my suggestion. Testing people so that when everybody else realizes what I'm telling you happens, that you're not fighting for the same guy that you already know and already have a relationship with who you're going to call.
Andrew, you want to go back into contracting?
No, I mean, I might have to at this rate. I mean, it sounds like I can't flip houses. I can't make all of my previous money. So it sounds like I need to go back into high-end flips and high-end contracting. Yes.
So with there projected to be a housing glut within 10 years, or even in some areas, obviously sooner if you lose a lot of Hispanic renters, would you advise looking to get out of the buy and hold?
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, the housing market is a market. If supply increases, and demand stays level, then, price goes down. If supply stays level and demand goes down because we've had a lot of baby boomers die off and people got deported, well, then price is going to go down. But that doesn't necessarily mean you can't make money. If you haven't overpaid and your properties cash flow well, you will still be fine. What it all comes down to with long-term rental is, does the property cash flow? So even if your value goes down, as long as you still cash flow, you're okay, right? So just
I've always looked at it another way, and the way. First of all, I've always followed the cycles. And like I said, I've been doing this for 30 years, so I've seen a lot of cycles, both big and small. The market's always moving. So if your numbers don't make sense, then you should look at why they don't make sense. And when I say they don't make sense is it doesn't matter. Let's say you bought a house for $100,000. The rent's for $1,000 a month, so it's 1% deal. Okay? But that house is now worth, hypothetically, let's say it goes up to $500,000 and you're still getting that $1,000 a month. That deal, even though you paid $100,000, it doesn't make sense anymore because you could have that $500,000. So I look at return on value as opposed to return on investment, because that return on actual value is what really, really matters, because you could put that $500,000 somewhere else. So if your properties are going up so much that the rents don't justify the price, then there's something wrong. And I saw that going wrong in 2003. And I started selling a lot of single families back then because the rents hadn't gone up, but the property values had doubled. And so when they don't make sense, you have to start looking at whether you should start selling some assets strategically. And it really depends on the assets, because where one house might have gone up 3 or 4 times in value, one of them might have only gone up 20 or 30%. So you really have to look at those, and then you have to, look at what your goal is, because you also have to look at where you're going to put that money once you sell. And putting it in the bank right now is not as good as it was 6 months ago.
Is that same calculated to be ROE or return on equity
No,
value?
no, because equity doesn't matter according to value, because you might not have any, or you might have 100% equity in the property.
Mhm.
And if you have 50% equity, then your return on equity goes down, but that's just according to your loan value more than anything. It doesn't really have to do with the value of the property. And I always say, don't make your decisions off of the loan, make your decision off of the property. Because if you try to do it off of your loan, you can manipulate the answer by borrowing more or less.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you don't want to make a bad decision because of your
And that's-
good or bad loan.
Yeah, that's why in the commercial and multifamily space they use cap rates.
Correct.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
who's not familiar with cap rates? Before I go too far into that,
Why don't you give them a quick overview, just real quick?
down and dirty on cap rates, it's essentially a cash on cash return, assuming no mortgage. Like oversimplified explanation.
And a cap rate is converted to an interest rate.
Yeah.
So if you buy a property for 100,000, you make 10,000 a year. That's a 10 cap. You're making 10% on your money. So if you're making 8,000 a year, and this is after all expenses, if you're making 8,000 a year, that's an 8 cap. So that's the reason they do that, so you can compare different asset classes, different types of investments.
And it makes it easier for marketing your deal because you don't know what kind of financing your buyer is going to have, right? So if your marketing has, hey, this deal is a 9 cap, well, everyone knows like, oh, it's a 9 cap, and they know what kind of financing they can get, right? So they can kind of make their adjustments accordingly because some people will get, the bank
Well-
loves them, they'll get a 5% rate. And some
Well, if
people
you're
get
paying
a-
cash, 9% is a great return. If you're borrowing at 9%, then nine cap's not going to work very well.
That's
So
So
If you do cash out, where do you follow up on that? Where do you put the money?
that's
Sounds like
that's
Why so many guns?
that's the question of the day.
Buy a lot of guns.
That's the question we've all been contemplating.
You
Is
can't
if
leave it
you
in the
do sell
bank.
something, and that's the reason I say you have to be strategic and only sell the ones that are totally out of line. Because if you have a property that's tripled or quadrupled in value, but the rents haven't gone up, that's one you need to liquidate first. Because if you have one that's gone up 20%, obviously there's probably no reason to liquidate that because it hadn't gone up enough. But there's people out there. I mean, I've talked to them that bought a house for $30,000 or $40,000 10 years ago, and that house is literally worth $300,000 now. But they're still looking at, oh, I'm still making so good return off my 40 grand. Well, that math doesn't work.
I mean, you got to look at the
Because-
opportunity cost. What could
James,
you have done different? Right?
you lend it, you buy a mortuary, you buy an old folks home, you buy some sort of business that provides a service to old people. But the love letter to real estate right now that nobody wants to be honest is real estate's going back to a job. Okay, it is. If you want to make money in real estate, you're going to work for it now. It's not passive. I'd argue it never was. Everybody was just fucking high. And the love letter to real estate is that if you turn real estate in the United States into a scatter plot and you look at all 50 states and you compare real estate as an entire industry to every other industry that you could possibly make money in, the love letter is we are going to lose money at a much lower rate than everybody else is. We are going to lose money. Just get that through your head. If you walk out of this meeting and you still want to be in real estate, you are going to lose money. Okay? But you might lose 10% while the rest of the country loses 40%. And as far as I'm concerned, I suspect that is essentially going to be the same as making 30% on your money.
Well, and I mean, you're wording it as losing money, but it's just a reduction in equity, right? So you
Sounds
haven't.
like
It's
losing
not.
money.
It's not as though you.
He said, sounds like losing money.
I mean, well, so if you're a landlord and you plan to just never sell, you don't care about your equity position.
Mhm.
Like, unless you're doing a deep dive in your analysis, like what Russell Hunt was talking about, we're saying, okay, what is my opportunity cost for staying in this deal as opposed to doing something else, right? Sometimes if you do a deep dive in your portfolio, you're going to find, you know what, I should sell this one, this one, this one, this one, and these I should hold. But for some landlords, they don't care. All they care about is the cash flow. That's the landlord that bought it for 30 grand and
I
doesn't
think
care.
that anybody that thinks they should hold property forever is short-sighted.
I agree. I think they're either worth $50 million and don't give a crap, or they just started in real estate and they're saying, well, if I never sell, I never got to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Everybody sells their crap.
Sell it 1031 into something else.
Yeah, you could.
1031s are dangerous too.
1031 into it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that-
get friends.
You know what they don't
Well,
talk
and-
about? 1031s are great until you've been doing it for 10 years. That's what smacks you, and I've actually watched it in people's careers because they can't pay their taxes.
I'm
They cash out, they adjust their basis over and over, and then they sell, and they hardly get what they owe in taxes out of it.
I'm anti 1031 as well. I say it's either a time to buy or a time to sell. It's never a time for both. And if you're buying and selling at the same time, you might as well kept the one you had. And the other thing is I feel like that now is probably the cheapest your taxes will ever be. So why wouldn't you pay them now? So and granted, it changes when you're 60, 70, 80 years old. Then yeah, maybe you should keep it until you die and then pass it on and get stepped up basis. But at 40, 50 years old, then yeah, I say you pay the taxes as you go. Because yeah, they do build up. Because I've got properties now that I've had to do weird exchanges, what's actually called a 1033 exchange into, and I can't sell that property now because the taxes are going to be so high.
1031s are the investor student loans.
They are.
You don't
I agree.
realize the money is free. You
Oh,
spend it.
man.
You go on vacation, but it forced it. The 1031, and I'll still do it strategically. But I'm much like him now. I'm gonna know if I do it what I'm going into, what that exit already looks like, because it forced me to make bad decisions. Because not only does it force you to go bigger because you have to maintain your debt load. Okay, so it forced me to buy properties that I probably wasn't ready to buy in my investing career.
At a time when it's probably not a good time to buy it because you just sold a property for more than it was worth.
Bingo. And now I'm rushed on due diligence. I've got 45 days. I've got to do this. I forced to buy properties that I discovered in due diligence I probably shouldn't buy, but how much money I'm going to lose on that property or might lose on that property is less than my $1 million tax liability. It feels really good the first 5 times you do it. But the thing is nobody combines the 1031 exchange with the cash out refinances. And it's when you do that you've taken a poison pill. Because I had properties, to make it simple, that I bought for $100,000. I pulled $50,000 out of, okay? So when I sold it for $175,000, I got $25,000 in cash, but I paid taxes like I got $75,000 in cash. Okay? That's dangerous. Because if I sold other properties that year and I'm going to pay damn near $30,000 in taxes, there's more. I promise you, the other thing you don't think that they don't talk about the 1031 exchange that I know that you've probably strangled your accountant about is all the taxes that you don't know exist that you start paying when you pay $1 million in taxes that year. The alternative minimum investment. It's like all these 1%, 3%, 4% little taxes that stack up and get an extra $250,000 out of you.
And you lose all of your deductions. You lose all of your almost anything you can deduct. Typically, you lose. That you phase out of everything. So
if you 1031, make sure you're going to double your money. That's pretty much my new rule.
Also, if you're thinking about, as you mentioned, doing a 1031 and then doing a cash out refi, your lender doesn't ask what your taxable base is. Like, they don't care. It's not part of my calculation, right? If you're asking for a cash out refi, the property's worth $3 million, I'm going to try to get you as high a loan to value as I can, because like as a broker, I get paid when you get a loan, and I get paid based on your loan amount. So I absolutely want you to borrow as much money as you can.
Yep.
Just open disclosure. That is a thing. And then when the investor sees, I can get 75% cash out.
Tax-free?
Tax-free?
I don't
gotta
do
pay-
cash outs anymore. Do you do cash outs?
I don't borrow.
Yeah, I don't.
Russell says I'm the bank.
Yeah, I'm the bank now.
Russell says I
I
lend
like to
money.
loan it. Yeah, I always said that seems like the easy way. I always thought my banker was living the life. So
It's crazy how what you do changes throughout your career. I won't do a cash out refinance anymore. The rates are higher. The money just gets spent. I don't know where it went.
Yeah, if you're doing a cash out refi, it should be for a purpose. Because especially now, you're paying 7.5%, 8% interest on the money. You better have a use for that money.
But I'd rather just sell it than have one property that I'm working on and have to manage a property now that doesn't produce hardly any return. That's what kills me about it.
Well, time value of money. How long will it take you to, if you're going to sell the property and get $30,000 a day, how long would it take you to get $30,000 as a rental?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what else could opportunity cost? What else could you do with that $30,000 that could potentially generate a higher return than that rental property?
That's the reason I always tell people they should be looking at their returns, because if your property's worth too much, it's a good time to sell it.
Now here's an interesting nugget of maybe where you put the money. Okay, I would put $10 on the fact that Trump reinstates opportunity zones or renews them. They're coming to and they're dying a slow death. But he seemed to be really proud of those. Like, he did the black community solid. So I bet you he'll reinstitute those. But what most people didn't use opportunity zones correctly was for it basically an alternative to a 1031 exchange. But what people missed is that it wasn't just for real estate investments. It was also for stocks, private equities, really anything that you could classify as an investment. So I do private equities have actually made me more money than real estate. And what's great is like I had a private equity. I have a private equity that I'm up probably 3 times in right now. Okay. And if I sell, I'm going to pay 20% plus state, plus AIT, plus whatever else they want to nail me with. But I can take that money and I can put it in an opportunity zone, even though it's a stock, and completely defer it. And the way he set it up the first time was like a 10% step up in 5 years, a 5% step up in 7 years, and then after 10 years, 100% tax free. So it's kind of cool. Like one thing that I'm doing is all that land that I've got in Idaho. You've asked me why I've been dragging my ass to develop it. It's because if he reinstitutes opportunity zones, I'm not going to go buy something run down that becomes an issue for me. I'm going to take my money tax free. I'm going to go build something that I don't have a problem holding. I'm going to build it knowing that I'm going to hold this thing for 10 years with all the things that I learned over the years that have caused me heartache in my rentals. And I'm going to build myself an actual passive asset. But maybe that's an answer where you put the money as you look for plays on opportunity zone funds.
I'm hoping he'll simplify the opportunity zone this time around, because last time it was really complicated. So hopefully it'll be a lot simpler next time. But yeah, there's also going to be other tax cuts that are probably coming. So depending on how those work through Congress, there'll be something. So
this
you just have
may
to
be a good
watching.
time to liquidate assets.
Right now,
No,
If
not until he
depending
announces his
depending
plan.
on this plan.
the upcoming plans.
Yeah, there's too much uncertainty right now. I mean, I wouldn't take any rational steps until there's something actually happening, right? Because you don't know. I mean, Trump said a lot of stuff, but Trump's always said a lot of stuff, right?
Well, half the insurance companies in the country are having backdoor meetings right now about what happens when they burn the country down and next year. So, I mean, what's interesting is the insurance companies are heavily betting on mass amounts of civil unrest next year.
They got a plan for the possibility, right? But you might also recognize that in your insurance contract, if the property is damaged because of civil unrest, you're not covered.
They've thought ahead of it.
Oh, yeah.
Are you wholesaling guns or are you buying collectibles?
Am I wholesaling guns or am I buying collectibles?
Yeah.
I'm buying people's collections. Is a lot of times what I'm not really going out trying to buy one gun at a time. I've noticed I'm getting better prices on guns when I buy people's whole collections. And you know what's interesting? I kind of feel bad. There's a voice in the back of my head asking me if I'm going to turn out just like these same people. But there's so many people that have spent a significant amount of their earnings doomsday prepping with massive amounts of ammo and, James Oney. I'm just kidding. He had a lot, but he lost it in a boating accident. So he's getting restarted.
I don't know why you take all those guns out in the boat, but man, you guys are crazy.
We were shooting fish.
Shooting fish.
But these guys, a lot of these people are getting into trouble. Like, their lifestyle is getting cut back and their wives are screaming at them like, I can't go to Disney World with the kids, but you have 30 rifles in the back. And I'm just noticing that a lot of these people spend a lot of money on really good pieces of equipment and for one reason or another are having to sell it. And there's a lot of times they're not making a ton of money on it.
Or the other thing is the baby boomers are dying off, and then their wives are trying to sell it.
Yeah.
God bless America.
And they believe, and the problem is, really what that is, they believe that what we told them what we paid for it.
Right.
And so they're trying to get that amount of money, and that's the real problem. Yeah.
$150.
$150. That's all I spent this year on guns. That's it. I thought you bought 6. Really good deal.
You know, my mentor, my last collection I bought though, a lot of those guns that he bought 4 or 5 years ago, up 50%.
Yep.
I mean, you can't laugh at it.
Mhm.
You know, we were talking about this, and James is more expert than I, but I started getting into guns just because I realized that the dollar signs behind it. But if you buy, you got to buy quality pieces. You can't be buying piece of crap with brands that nobody knows. But you got buy good stuff. You clean them. You keep them lubed. You keep them in a safe that's got, you know, something to absorb moisture, a dehumidifier or something in it. And then you forget about it. And then if they try to burn down the country, you know, you ask them what their favorite caliber is and you give it to them. But it sounds crazy, but I'm saying for real, guns might be peaking as an investment.
Yeah, I will say though, your carry pistol is not an investment. Like that is not something you buy for value. That's something you buy that should be reliable. You should carry it around, and it's going to be losing value every day you're carrying it around because you're beating it up. You know, you should be training with your carry pistol, putting a lot of rounds through it. If you're going to carry, you should train, right?
It's a tool, not an investment.
It's a tool, not an investment. Now,
Farmland, I think, would be a great investment.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Farmland's gone up an average of 11% a year for like, they say 50 years, but I think it's longer.
And
than that.
taxes are low on farmland.
Yeah, property taxes are low.
Extremely
But also, we're going to have a lot of.
The ROI, though.
True
Did
that.
you guys know we don't make any food in America? You guys know that? We primarily grow like 3 crops. That's it. How many of your wives are going to be happy eating just 3 crops?
Especially when you find out what those 3 crops are.
Yeah, no
The
kidding.
biggest crop in the country is corn that we can't eat.
Mhm.
Big corn.
I mean, potatoes are pretty good.
I can just eat hamburgers and hot dogs.
Hamburgers and potatoes. You're fine. Your wife's gonna be upset, but you're fine.
The biggest
Some pizza.
crop is for ethanol. Yeah, it's not even feed corn.
Isn't it?